I used to take her as a baby to work projects with me. I think of a Worldschool as a unit study where Morgan and I would choose a location about it, but I don't want to be a tourist because this is world schooling, because this is a unit study. What are we studying? I like this idea a lot because finance plays into it. We get there, we fly back. Yeah, that actually could work. Hi, you guys. If it's morning for you like it is for me, good morning. I have my coffee. I've got my dog, who you may hear snoring, and people are starting to wake up around the house. It's a little bit later now, but our electricity went out around 4 in the morning. And then I didn't notice that, but I definitely noticed when all of the electronics started powering back on. And so that was essentially my alarm clock today. And I thought, well, I'm up. I might as well get about my day. And I like having quiet mornings. I really like quiet mornings. So I came into the office and I started thinking about homeschool. I think about it all the time. I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm obsessed with it. So this morning I was thinking back on the videos that I have done, particularly the one recently about being an eclectic homeschool mom, and also the other categories that I had looked at. And some, it's funny. It's like your favorite color. You either like or you don't like red, or, you really like yellow, but your favorite color is blue. And I feel that that's the way for the style of homeschool that each mom seems to have. You've got your fave or your top two fave, and then in graduating order, they decrease of this is my least fave. And one that keeps coming back up in my mind is Worldschooling. And I didn't have it as a name. It wasn't a thing when I was starting to homeschool. But I did know that while I wanted to teach Morgan a foreign language, I also wanted to use that as a means of traveling. I used to travel a lot. And before we moved to North Dakota, I had 17 addresses in 22 years. So I traveled a lot. And sorry, I'm keeping an eye on the dog. I like traveling. I think I'm good at it because I've done it so much. And Morgan doesn't remember traveling with me. I used to take her as a baby to work projects with me. I'd get a plane ticket and she'd sit right next to me and we'd fly to wherever I needed to work and I would drag her around with me. When she became school age and then we moved up here, that wasn't really an option. She needed to go to school. And call me silly, you guys, I didn't know anything. I didn't know homeschooling existed. Before Morgan, I didn't have kids, so I didn't think about this stuff. So now I'm thinking about it, especially this morning, very early in the morning. And I thought, well, I should do a video on this because I'm really thinking about it a lot. I knew I was going to travel with Morgan eventually. I know she needs to get just a little bit older. She needs to be comfortable having an emergency plan if I just travel with Morgan. Traveling alone or traveling with the whole family is an entirely different and, in my opinion, much easier animal than an adult traveling with a minor, because you don't have a backup plan necessarily. If something were to happen to me, Morgan needs to be old enough to be able to handle herself until she can get to safety or whatever. These are creepy things that you have to think about. You have to think about them. There have been too many mistakes that I have known of that just preclude me from doing this or homeschooling, world schooling without a plan. I want to make a plan. So I have it already in my head, and I thought I would just spitball while the camera was running and talk about my idea of what world schooling would be. So I'll edit it though. I'm going to keep it streaming, but I also need to edit it because I have a habit of saying too many times. So I find that can get really annoying. So if it's a little choppy, that's why. Now I'm going to run through the things that I have on my short list. I have only just started planning this, so I may miss some things. And if I do, feel free to make comments down below, especially if you have traveled while homeschooling. Tell me your experience as well. I have a lot of experience in travel, and traveling with Morgan, but not traveling with Morgan overseas with the intent to school. One thing that I've noticed during my research in this last couple of weeks is the majority of world schoolers who are also YouTubers show a lot of vacationing, and that's not my thing. I mean, I love vacations. When I think of world schooling, I don't envision scuba diving or swimming in a pool. That's okay if that's somebody else's idea, but they don't actually spend a lot of time thinking about or talking about how you bring curricula with you. There are people who world school and that's all they do. So they travel all of the time and maybe it's on a boat or maybe they've got suitcases. But my idea of world schooling with Morgan would be a unit study. So we have a farmstead. My husband loves to travel, but I don't think that he would like to do this. He is happy to stay on the farmstead. We have a 130-pound dog and a shop cat that we can't just leave, nor do we want to. So this would be kind of our home. This would be our home base. This is our home school. And I think of a world school as a unit study where Morgan and I would choose a location or locations, a mode of transportation, do all of the research around planning it, and figuring out how to adapt the homeschool into the travel, and then maybe being gone for 2 weeks, 4 weeks tops, maybe doing a 2 or 3 week world travel once a semester. And I think what's really important is also to figure out one's budget. I realize that perhaps if you have many other children, this might not be an option, but gosh, isn't it fun to think about? I mean, I may not do all of this, but I just want to put it out there because there are a few things that I think that as somebody who has traveled worldwide, people don't always think about. And one huge one, I'm not going to make you wait to figure it out because I don't want you to forget to do this, is health insurance. If something were to happen overseas, does your insurance kick in? Would it be viewed as insurance so that you could be taken care of overseas? So I'm just going to go through. Here's my idea. One of the things that I wanted to do since Morgan and I are learning French is pick French countries. That kind of stands to reason, right? Because if she's just beginning to speak French, then maybe we need to pick some countries where there's French. So I have a list of them and I was going to have Morgan. So here's my idea. Maybe I would have Morgan, I would give her 5 countries that I've already pre-researched so I know we could go there, and then maybe throw in a few wild cards of things where once she does the research on it, maybe we shouldn't go to Vanuatu. There's civil unrest there. Probably a bad idea. And have her make the decision to check that off the block. And then each country, maybe she would study and give the pros and cons. There'd be parameters. What does it take to get there? The mode of transportation. Is it safe? And then she'd need to learn a little bit about the government structure, customs, historic locations to visit, how we would do homeschool, where we would stay, and then rank them. Out of the 5, I eliminated this one for this reason, excuse me, right off the bat. And then this one looks really good, but once I did the research, it's prohibitively expensive or really hard to get to, or is too small, like Luxembourg. I would think that if we went to Luxembourg, we wouldn't want to stay there for 2 or 3 weeks. I know I wouldn't. I'd want to be more mobile than that. Luxembourg is tiny. When I went when I was younger, I don't actually remember it. I literally slept through Luxembourg. My parents were traveling with my sister and I, and we were we were driving across several European countries, and I slept through Luxembourg. So that's the running joke is in my family. If it's small enough to sleep through, you probably don't want a vacation there for a month. No offense, Luxembourg. Then there's another way we could do this unit study because I really want Morgan to participate in it. I want this to be her own as well. Perhaps what I would do is, and I'm kind of leaning in this direction, where I would tell her we're going to fly into Belgium and make our way south or make our way to Switzerland and then through France somehow with trains or flying or whatever, and then catch the boat to Corsica. And then once we get there, we fly back. Yeah, that actually could work. There are a couple that I've eliminated or I would want to eliminate. I think French Polynesia is beautiful. I don't think that we want to do that right now for a lot of reasons. I'm not a beach person. Look, I'm an X generation person. I watched the movie and there's a whole group of us that don't get in the water. So Jaws ruined it. I don't know. I'm not a beach person, so that's not going to be us. And so the Comoros Islands, we could do that, but I don't know. You're kind of locked in there. Once you fly to Comoros, you're sort of stuck there. So I'm taking islands off the list, but the idea of doing a tour intrigues me. And if you've not heard of vagabonding, that's a thing. People who backpack across areas on as little money as possible. I like this idea a lot because finance plays into it. If you go here, if you spend a ton of money getting there, then how much money do you have while you're there? I like the idea of teaching Morgan to live on a shoestring budget, and travel is such a great way to do it. It's a realistic way to do it. You can't run out of money when you're overseas. It doesn't work well. While I think that we can do many days while we're traveling kind of free and loose, I don't think it's a good idea to do the whole thing that way. I think having that structure around a loose program within the entire travel will work really well for us. So here's what I'm thinking. I had listed some of the countries. Vanuatu is not a good idea. Madagascar, civil unrest, still. Large island. Comoros, not so much. Switzerland, okay. Equatorial Guinea, not a good idea. Luxembourg, small. We could go through it, but I don't think I want to do 2 or 3 weeks there. Seychelles, French Polynesia, Wallis and Futuna. I actually couldn't find a lot about that at all. Corsica, Napoleon was born there. Belgium would be a great launching place. Yeah, okay, so as I'm thinking about it, if we were to fly into Belgium, so I want to use, my husband's got tons of miles. So here's the deal. How do we do this as cheaply as possible? Because I don't want to spend a ton of money. The actual point is to learn how to travel, is learn the geography, understand the culture, go to places where you physically learn the history. One of the things Morgan mentioned was, if we go to Paris, the top on her list is she wants to go see Hammurabi's Code. It's in the Louvre, or what's left of it anyway. And we learned that in history. So these are the things that I think would be great as we're learning. We can literally go see those things, but I want to do it on a shoestring budget. So if we fly in, if we use my husband's miles and we fly into Belgium, then we could spend a couple of days there. We could take the train to Holland. I really want to show Morgan. Let me see, where is it? Yeah, it's in Mauritius. It's in a museum called Mauritius in The Hague, and it's Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl Earring. It's a fantastic museum. The Hague is really easy to get around. We could bike. It's a museum that's really accessible to foreigners. So what might drive my idea of this and what might drive Morgan's selection is what she knows about certain locations or things. And if we can physically go see them, then we would build that into the program. We could also go visit, I think we could visit NATO. Can you visit NATO? Yeah, we could visit NATO. Why not? So I think, I don't know, maybe start out in The Hague, take the train to Belgium, high-speed train to Paris, stay there for a couple of days. I don't want to do a lot of touristy things. So to be clear, when we travel, I don't want this to be a vacation. I want it to be a fully incorporated learning experience. And yeah, I mean, it'll be fun and there'll be some vacation aspects about it, but I don't want to be a tourist. I hate being a tourist. Once you get to Europe, trains are easy. You can pretty much get anywhere on them. So then we could get out of the main tourist areas and go to the smaller, lesser known towns and stay there for a day, each one. Day here, visit. And that's where it could get kind of loose, where we don't know much about that town. And this has happened to me before, where I go and I think that I'm going to spend 2 or 3 days there, and it turns out I'm kind of done in a day. So to have a loose schedule and an easy rail pass where we can just decide we're done, let's get on the train and go to the next place. So we still have a plan, but we don't have a timeline, which I think is really helpful. Which also means that the plane ride back will need to be, these are Schengen countries, so they all have an agreement to share information and to allow free travel as well. From, like, if you come into Belgium, you shouldn't have they're not going to passport check you into France. So these are also things to think about. So if you go to Hungary, or if you go to a non-Schengen area, if you go somewhere in Africa or Latin America, you can't just buy a ticket to Bolivia, a ticket into Bolivia, and a ticket out of Chile. It might not work that way. And if it does, then you have to make sure your visas are in order. We don't have to do that if we stay in the Schengen agreed areas. What was I talking about? I lost my train of thought. This happens a lot. Oh, okay. So if we were to fly into, for instance, The Hague, you might not be asked for a return ticket, but it can happen that you get to the airport in whatever state you're in and you at your international travel, and the airline will check to see if you have a return ticket, and maybe the country that you're flying to doesn't care, but the airline does, and they may not let you board. I like taking risks. I don't want to take that risk, not with my kid anyway, especially if we have a really nice trip planned. So what I think we would do is have a return ticket, but that it be easily exchanged. So for instance, then here we are going through France, and then we go to Switzerland, and then down through Italy, and then across into Corsica, and then we finish in Corsica. We'd need a flight out there. But what if we arrive 5 days early or 5 days late from our planned trip home? It would be nice to have a flexible ticket or something easily changed that my husband can handle from here. And then he can email me the itinerary and the tickets, and then we leave. So that's how I kind of want to leave it loose, and that's how you can do it. So let's see, we don't have to worry about visas. And if we do, I think the majority of places, for instance, like if you wanted to fly into Turkey, you can fly into Turkey without a visa. You can buy it literally right there. But there are other places where the airline, if you haven't thought about it, if it hasn't occurred to you to get a visa, you won't board the airplane in the United States, because the airlines has a responsibility to make sure that they won't fly you to a location you're not allowed to enter. You'd be surprised how many people forget that. You'd also be surprised how many people forget that they need a passport. It's a thing. So I would want Morgan I would probably do a project where I would ask her questions. What is a visa? What is a passport? How would you get one? How would you look it up? Let's see. What are country social customs? Are there any safety alerts? When you travel anywhere, it's really good to check with state.gov. So the State Department has a requirement to all embassies around the world to update their threat assessment and to provide U.S. citizens, or to provide the State Department information about safety of travel and other interests. And they update it as needed. And they at least, I think, update it or look at it per year. So that is where I would want Morgan to go and look. Also, the State Department website informs the CIA website. And so CIA has a fantastic website that I like to look at, the CIA's World Fact Book with travel facts. And you can pick any country, and it'll tell you visa requirements, the U.S. State Department travel advisory, if any, where the U.S. Embassy and the consulate is, safety for different types of travelers. Also on CIA's World Fact Book, they have vaccinations. They talk to you about the climate, currency. Oh, here's something people don't think about. Plug outlets. How many times have we gone somewhere and you can't charge your phone? So a lot of times what I do is I plan for what I need. I don't travel with it because I hate traveling with stuff, and I'll just pick it up there. I'll just buy a converter or something. Major languages, major religions. So we could do religious studies. The time difference. Can you drink the water? Which side of the road should you drive on? Tourist destinations to avoid. Major sports, cultural practices, traditional cuisine. It covers a lot. So literally your kid could do their research off of one webpage. So let's see, I'm thinking about cost of travel. In our case, we are going to hugely cut down on the cost of travel by using miles. And so you will find, if a lot of you are probably used to using miles, then you're also used to being given the worst route possible into a country because they don't want to give you the best route. So we'll need to be prepared to make 5 or 6 different hops or whatever in the middle of the night, where it's supposed to only take 10 hours to get to The Hague. It may take 36. And on a side note, one of the things that I do is I have throwaway clothes in my backpack. I have always carry a toothbrush and a toothpaste, little mini travel kit to stay feeling like you're not a dirtbag on the plane, and also throwaway clothes. So I have a t-shirt and I have underclothes, and then when I get to the location, or if we get stalled and it takes days to get there, we can change and literally just chuck the clothes. I don't keep them in my backpack. So those are things that are just inexpensive. It doesn't matter what I look like. And then when I change them out, I throw them away. That is a very helpful tip to somebody who likes to travel a lot. So with our airfare, it should be very low wherever it is that we go. And then from there, are we going to take, I don't want to fly from there. From there, I want to backpack and take trains, buses, taxis if we have to. It's too bad hitchhiking is not a good idea. There is a website that's really good for France, or actually a lot of Europe, for train travel in France. It's by the man in seat 61. And there's some really good tips on there that I think I'm going to have Morgan research on. What kind of rail ticket do we want? Do we want to buy a pass and then we're free to move around, or whatever? So I think that's worth looking into. And also the metro. The underground or the subway in Paris is called the metro, and I'd really like Morgan to know what that looks like before, his little map of the subway or the underground. I'd really like Morgan to know what that looks like and how to use it, how to get a ticket, how to look or read the map. What is bus travel like? Can you just hop the bus and buy a ticket? I know you can do that in a lot of countries. In other places you can't, or you can get like a rail to a bus pass. I know you can do that in Manhattan really easily. You can also do that in Washington, D.C. super easy. So if you ever go to Washington, D.C., you get their little pass, and it works for the metro and the bus. Then I want Morgan to draw out the itinerary day by day with places that we want to visit. How do we get there? The museums or whatever we want to see. Do we need a ticket to go there? All of that goes into our budget and our itinerary. So a lot of these things are just going to have to hodgepodge together and then start to form. And length of stay. So I don't know. I don't want to do a week. I think if we go overseas, I think doing a week is not doing it justice and wasting money on a long trip. So I think anything under 2 weeks would not make a good unit study. I think anything over 4 weeks would burn her out. So the soft spot or the sweet spot is probably 2 to 4 weeks. Yeah, that would be good. And then I want to think about the curriculum, because this is world schooling, because this is a unit study. What are we studying? It's definitely geography, economy. There's, the world life skill of travel and the smarts of doing that all at the same time, of safety. French, we'll be learning French definitely and practicing our French. I don't want to bring a lot of physical stuff. There's a ton that we could do online. Any books that we want to read can be on Kindle. So if we bring any book, it will probably be math. Unless we use like what is that thing, like a write pad. We could bring a write pad. All of these things weigh something though. So if we bring a camera and we bring whatever and this and this and this, it starts to weigh you down. And I really don't want to do that. So I want to be very sparing over what we bring. Okay, so now where to stay. Here's the deal. We don't do hostels in the United States, but they're awesome overseas. They're quite safe. You can look them up. And so where's the website? Hostels. Hostel World. Hostelworld.com. All right. So for instance, if we wanted to stay in Brussels, you would type in Brussels and then you get a whole list of options for hostels. And you need to look into this because there's mixed living conditions in many hostels in Europe. So you want to plan, if you have a family, you can do a family private room, then that starts to get a little bit more expensive. What some families do is there's male and female dorms, and so the dads and the sons go to one dorm to sleep and the moms and the daughters go into another dorm to sleep. So Morgan and I would definitely want to stay in a all girls dorm, and then that's a great way for you to keep your littles close to you. Now, if you're traveling alone and you're a dad with a daughter, you can't stay in the male dorm nor the woman's dorm, so you would want a private room, and the same if you were a mom traveling with your son. There's tons of benefits to a hostel, aside from keeping it cheap, because that's kind of what I want to teach Morgan, is how to travel on a shoestring budget. I think that's just fun and exciting. It's also a part of the learning experience. Hostels are more sociable than a hotel. So if you stay in a hotel, you're going to remain, although you're visiting and you're in country, you're not really immersed in country. You're not going to socialize with people in the lobby. I don't know about you, but when I'm in hotels, I don't socialize with people in lobbies a lot. People who stay in hotels are doing other things. They're kind of sticking to themselves. When you go to a hostel, the idea is to meet other travelers, others from different locations in the world, and really sharing in that experience. Now, even deeper than that, which I think we're going to do, is do some homestays. If you've ever done a foreign exchange where you go and stay at somebody's house and you're really immersed, there's something called homestay, homestay.com, and you can log on and find out places where families are letting out their spare room, and you can stay with them. You can't stay for long. It's not for weeks at a time. They're very inexpensive. You have to look to see, are they going to feed you breakfast? Or you can also, once you reach out to those people, maybe you can discuss extra payment in feeding you lunch and dinner, or maybe you can cook with the family as well. But there's places to stay for $10 a night. They're safe. If you do homestay.com, these people are vetted. And what I really like about this is Morgan and I get to talk to no-kidding families in non-tourist areas. And even if we did stay with a homestay family in Paris, they aren't tourists. So we would then get the benefit of knowing where to go without having to do an endless amount of research, where to go without being a tourist, where to see that thing that Parisians know that tourists never know. And that's very enticing to me. Also, what you can do is there are families with little kids who let out their room. So what I would like to do is look to see what families are there in places that we'd like to stay who also have boys and girls of my daughter's age. I know from direct experience that kids want to talk to other kids in that foreign language. It is so less stressful for them to kind of bumble through with a foreign language with a child than it is with an adult. The teaching experience goes out the window and the learning experience is just all encompassing. Okay, what things have I forgotten? Of all the things that I've bumbled through in this video, is there anything that glaring that sticks out at you that I haven't considered? I would like to know. Did I mention vaccinations? I think I need to make sure that I did. So this video at least begins to answer that burning question I know you all had of what does Jill do when the electricity comes back on at 4 o'clock in the morning? I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And for those of you who have already subscribed to me and reached out to me, thank you so much. I love your comments. I love your questions, your encouragement. My cup runneth over. Thank you so much. I hope you all stick around and see what it is that Morgan and I decide to come up with for our 5th grade possible Worldschool homeschool unit study. See you later.